On today's episode of the Duck Zone 503 podcast, we preview the wide receiver position heading into spring ball 2023. I'm your host, Dominic Peterson. This is the Duck Zone 503 podcast where we talk all things Oregon football. Whether this is your first time viewing or you've been a long time viewer, I kindly ask that you hit that like and subscribe button down below. It really helps with the algorithm. But most importantly, guys, telling your friends and family about the podcast. Word of mouth is the most effective way of growing podcasts, no matter what you're doing. Telling your friends and family, if you got Duck fans in your family, tell them about this podcast on YouTube. Really appreciate everybody who's locked in here, subscribed on YouTube, and following us on Instagram and Twitter at DuckZone503. Quick search for the quickest updates on all things Oregon football. Go ahead and do that right now if you haven't already. Really appreciate everybody who does. All right, guys, let's get into it. So I'm rolling out my spring previews on the podcast. Today, I'm going to do the wide receiver position for Oregon football. So coming into it, we got Troy Franklin, who's easily a Biletnikoff caliber wideout. But look, guys, the team's going to need someone to step up after Chase Cota and Dante Thornton's departure. I mean, those are some pretty big losses. And yeah, we got Troy Franklin, our leading wide receiver, back. But who's behind him? We're going to talk about that. We're going to dive into it. Ducks will be searching for a new number 2 wide receiver option, no doubt. Not only did the Ducks get a Heisman level play from superstar quarterback Bo Nix, but they also had a breakout year from Troy Franklin. Entering last year, we kind of had some questions about this offense, about how effective is this offense going to be. I mean, we had offensive coordinator Kenny Dillingham, young guy, but what has he done that really excites us, right? We didn't really have anything. And then Bo Nix, a guy that's a former 5-star, but didn't really do much at Auburn. And Auburn fans were kind of happy that he left. And then you looked at the wide receiver group, and there's a lot of potential, but we didn't have proven commodities yet. Coming into this year, you have your superstar player in Bo Nix, Heisman level contender, and you're going to have a Biletnikoff wideout and Troy Franklin. Now, the only thing this team needs now is just to add on top of that, right? And we're going to get into that. So Franklin may have the makings of being a first-round NFL draft pick if it's when it's all said and done, okay? But behind him, is there honestly anybody who right now at this point of spring ball we can say is going to be an NFL draft pick? Not really, and that's where the Ducks are going to need some help, right? So they add 5 wide receivers to the room, okay? That's either transferred. Or excuse me, you add to that 5 wide receivers have either transferred or graduated. You're looking at a very different room, okay? This is a very different room than last year. Dante Thornton transferred to Tennessee. Seven McGee went to Jackson State. And then Chase Cota graduated, and both Isaiah Crocker and Isaiah Brevard have entered the transfer portal. No official home for them yet. So lots of guys leaving. 2 of those guys, Crocker and Brevard, you could say, okay, those guys didn't really play. Chase Cota is a big one. I mean, if we could keep him, I'm sure Dan Lanning would have loved to, but the clicking time clock for college ball always comes doing that at some point. Seven McGee, Dante Thornton, those guys, I know they wanted bigger roles here at Oregon. I already know. And these guys are really good players. And I know they're going to do some big things at both those schools that they went to. So good luck to them. I always love watching where the former Ducks go and do big things, right? So it's going to be fun to watch. We got Jay Butterfield at San Jose State. That's another transfer to watch at another school. And Robbie Ashford, everybody kind of probably forgot about Robbie's name. Robbie Ashford transferred 2 seasons ago. But that's another guy to watch over at Auburn. So lots of transfers to watch in their offseason is going to be nice. Okay, so starting to talk about this wide receiver room player by player. Let's go ahead and start out by the superstar player, Troy Franklin, right? Troy Franklin is the face of this group after leading the team in catches, receiving yards, and receiving touchdowns. He had 61 catches, 891 receiving yards, and 9 touchdowns in last season. Big time year. I'd really like to see him get over 1,000 yards. I would definitely thought he was going to do it last year. He's definitely on track. Just didn't get there slightly. Almost got there. A 6'3", 178-pound wideout has elite hands catching the football and is more than capable of taking the top off of defenses as a deep threat. So you combine his hands compared with the fact that you got just off the top breakout speed to take the top off the defense. I mean, this could be easily a Biletnikoff finalist for next year. I definitely want to see him hit 1,000, maybe 1,200 yards. If he hits 1,200 yards and gets over 10 touchdowns and over 70 catches, I mean, this guy arguably be a first round draft pick. So really would like to see him get over that 1,000 receiving yards this year. I have no doubt that he's only stronger, faster than last year. I think he'll do it. Another year with Bo Nix also helps. Number 2 wide receiver that we got to talk about, guys, is, drum roll please, Chris Hudson. Chris Hudson, he was the team's starting slot receiver, and Hudson showed some good things. He showed he had really good burst, really crafty playmaker after the catch, really shifty guy, can get I really liked him off his screen passes, man, getting him in space. Although, man, the knock on him is he did have some big drops and some big moments last year when he needed to catch the ball. His place in the starting lineup may not be as solid as people think. There's lots of new talent coming onto the roster in the wide receiver room for that slot position. Troy Franklin pretty much has his spot locked in. I think Chris Hudson, a lot of people think, oh, he's locked in, he's shooting as the starting slot just because he's played. I don't think it's a sure thing. Now, given he is a good player, but the guys that we bring in this year, I think he's going to be challenged for sure. One of those challengers is going to be challenging him is Trayshawn Holden. Trayshawn Holden projects to be a main contributor for the Ducks after coming over from Alabama. The Crimson Tide, one of the best teams in college football, right? Very productive against SEC defense as well. We're talking about some of the best athletes that go to the NFL, as you know, if you don't know already. The SEC and the Big Ten, they produce NFL talent like clockwork. So especially the SEC in particular. So if he's doing really good things against SEC defenses, he's going to come here to Oregon, and I expect him to do some big things and be a main contributor. He did have some, off the field issues with some other legal issues that finally got figured out and investigated, and there's nothing that he did wrong. So Lanning did dismiss him off the team momentarily, but then after further investigation, finding out that he was innocent, he did bring him back on the team, which I think is the right thing to do. Very good move there. And nonetheless, if he just stays out of trouble, this kid can be another NFL draft pick that I feel like the Ducks desperately need at the wide receiver group. They need at least 2 or 3 to be, at least national contenders, right? You need if your number one option is taken away by a really good corner, you're gonna need another guy to step up. And that Chase Cota, really did that. And then when Chase Cota went down, Dante Thornton stepped up and had a really good play as well. So kind of sucked to see those guys go, but nevertheless, Trayshawn Holden's going to bring some playmaking ability to the room that, will also add some experience to the room as well. All right, number 3 guy that's coming in that will also challenge Chris Hudson for his play time is Tez Johnson. So Tez Johnson was the Troy Trojans' leading wide receiver in 2022, 56 catches, 863 yards, 4 touchdowns. So kind of similar numbers almost to Troy Franklin, which was our leading wide receiver here at Oregon. Given though Tez did play in a lower level league, playing at Troy, but nevertheless, really, really good numbers. Really slight frame. 5'10", 150 pounds. This guy is small. So if we're talking DeAnthony Thomas, LaMichael, this guy is small and fast. Graded out really well on a national scale according to PFF as well. Listed as the number 2 ranked wide receiver in all of college football according to PFF. So graded out really well as all-around wide receiver. Kid can play, man. Just can he play against bigger, stronger athletes is the question. We'll see. Johnson has a special connection with Bo Nix as well, as Bo Nix is his adopted brother. Yeah, so those guys are brothers through adoption. Really cool story there. Johnson will challenge Chris Hudson for that slot position. So that's going to be fun to watch during spring. Who does better during spring, Chris Hudson or Tez Johnson? That's something to watch for 100%. Last but not least, I have to shout out this guy, Kyler Casper, man. Kyler Casper came on the channel a couple times too. If you guys want to see interviews with him, I always try to get the signees when they commit onto the channel so we can really get to know them and get a deep dive into who they are. Go ahead and check that out if you want. But nevertheless, Kyler Casper, redshirt freshman, another redshirt freshman to be excited about. He's got all the tools to be an imposing, big-body wide receiver that Oregon lost in Dante Thornton. Okay, Dante Thornton was standing 6'5". Kyler Casper's around the same height, 6'6", 200 pounds. He reclassified from the 2023 class into the 2022 class to play this last year and gain experience. The game should be really slowing down for him a bit after getting a full season under his belt. We will see if Junior Adams, the wide receiver Oregon coach, and Will Stein, the new offensive coordinator, will start tapping into that sky-high potential that Kyler Casper has, because we all know, man, it's just a matter of time with these kids when things click. And Kyler Casper, the physicals that this guy has and the speed matched with that, this guy has the makings to be a star. And not a lot of people are talking about him yet. But let me tell you, I think this could be a year he breaks out. Possibly. We'll see how he develops. He had a full year last year, getting in a couple times, didn't really have big-time play or anytime big-time catches, but I've seen the film. I've interviewed this kid. This kid has a good head on his shoulders. His dad played in the NFL. He's had the training all his life. He's going to be ready when he's ready to step in. And he has a body that the Ducks just don't have, right? 6'6", 200 pounds. I think I like to add, he needs to add a little bit of weight, but nevertheless, really good. All right, guys, I really appreciate you once again tuning in. I'm your host, Dominic Peterson. This is the Duck Zone 503 podcast, where we talk all things Oregon football. If you haven't already, guys, hit that like and subscribe button down below. Most importantly, telling your friends and family about the podcast. Word of mouth really helps grow the podcast the fastest, guys. And let me tell you, I'm going to keep rolling out these spring previews for you guys. This is the wide receiver video. Keep looking out for these videos, guys, as we approach the spring game on April 29th, 1 p.m. I will be at the game. Really appreciate you guys. As always, I'll see you in the next podcast. Go Ducks.